Today's throwback, we're having a look at the NECA Toys Aliens Alien Queen Deluxe action figure. Spots was going to be looking at the McFarlane Toys Alien Queen as it was something I just didn't get around to reviewing, and I thought it occurred to me, just like a light bulb. Bing! Just like a light bulb. It occurred to me that really, if I was going to be doing a comparison to this queen right here versus the McFarlane Toys Queen, why not just do a throwback of this figure? Because initially the figure, I did it in black background and everything else like that, and it didn't really, if you ask me, advertise and really showcase some of the great features on the queen. So I thought to myself, you know what? I'm looking at the McFarlane Toys Queen. Why don't we just do a throwback of the NECA Alien Queen as well? For your front of the packaging, you've got some of the queen xenomorph eggs down below there. Couple have been opened, and some poor unsuspecting miners or people colonizing a planet. It looks like those are figures, and they are figures. Really cool little diorama. Eventually I'd love to get a similar diorama display for displaying Queen here, but that'll come certainly at a later date. When it comes to the back of the packaging, you've got, to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Alien franchise, we've created our most massive and most ambitious Alien figure ever. The terrifying xenomorph Queen stands over 15 inches tall and is over 30 inches long. Features more than 35 points of articulation, including a spectacular posable tail, hinged jaw, sliding head, and more. Includes a display stand and 2 different interchangeable inner mouths. Some assembly required. Of course, to check out more from the folks over at NECA Toys, you can go to www.necaonline.com. Spot's going to take himself a break, and I'm going to get this opened back up as we have a look in this throwback at the NECA Aliens Queen Deluxe action figure. There's more heading away, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Okay, so now that we've got the Alien Queen out of the box, let's get a better look at the figure. I'm surprised, actually, that I can get her to properly stand. Well, that's not fair to the Alien Queen. Technically, if you can get the legs situated in such a way, she does not need a display stand. You can clearly see here I've got her standing just fine, but the folks over at NECA do include a display stand just in case for a little bit more of a dynamic pose. If you want to kind of display her a little bit differently than what you see right here. She does come with a couple of poles, or at least the display end of it. Her display stand comes with a couple of poles, and there's a clip on the end. Now the smaller clip, of course, if you want to have her displayed more lunging or running forward, if you want to have her standing more upright, you can also replace it with the longer pole and attach the clip on the end. Now, for displaying purposes, I tend to go the route of incorporating the smaller pole, and then I just kind of have it underneath here. Let me show you what I do here. Just take the pole off and just grab the smaller pole, attach the clip here. What I usually do is, it doesn't necessarily clip in place as much as it just, let me just swing this around here, as much as it just kind of supports. That's basically what the stand does, is it supports the weight of the queen, so that you're not putting so much weight on the legs, the knees, and the ankles. But it does a job that it needs to do. It holds her in place. It keeps everything kind of situated. And then if you want to again display the hands and stuff like that, you have a little bit more luxury too, where you don't feel like she's going to topple over. We'll just remove this out of the way here. And yeah, you can see she's leaning a little bit forward, so display standing her for, you know, the extra rod. Some situations you might want to use it. All right, so let's have a look at the Alien Queen. A second go around, really, for me. This is a throwback after all. I really wanted to have a look at this figure because I think initially when I did the figure review, I wasn't happy with how it turned out. First of all, the background was black and, well, solid black. So I found like some of the details didn't stand out as well as they should. So this is kind of like my second go around to hopefully do the figure a little bit better justice. The figure is long, very, very long. In fact, let me see if I can grab a couple of figures so you can see by comparison. Here is the Alien Queen. There we go, next to one of her eggs, also released by NECA Toys. There is the Alien Queen. Just get him pulled out, there we go. Comparing with her one of her drones. There's one of the alien warriors. And probably another good example. There's Alien Queen. Let's see if I can actually put her over here. There we go. There's Alien Queen with a Ripley. Fittingly, I had to go with Ripley from Aliens. Aliens Ripley is really about, I guess, about the height of her thigh, give or take. So she is very tall, not Ripley necessarily, but the Queen. Very, very tall indeed. A good fitting size. You know, if NECA was to release the Queen, they couldn't have done her better service than giving her the length that they did. She is extremely long, from head to tail. The tail, of course, being wire framed, so you can manipulate that and bend that any which way that you want. This also does rotate too. Not that you would have the tail up. If anything, you want to, I generally keep the tail further down because it kind of offsets the weight of her. There's the front of the Queen. Her ankle keeps continuingly to pull my backdrop here. Let me just straighten that out. There we go. She keeps pulling. The culprit is these little ankle spikes that she's got. Just keeps wanting to pull this backdrop. But there's the front of the Alien Queen. One of the big issues that I think a lot of people had with the figure is the dome, or the crown crest, if you will. It wants to shift all the time. In fact, it shifts forward and back. It's supposed to simulate the face extruding or coming out from the front when it's looking down on, I guess it is Ripley, or is it Newt? It doesn't seem as successful, to be honest. That I wish that the head had found some way to slide out, but the head being the head being ball jointed to the neck seems to make more sense that they went with moving the crest. The head does move open and close, and she's got a little bit of the slimy strands, as you can see there, attaching the teeth. It's a good job. Very successful. Very, very successful. I love the blue. The blue is awesome. Now, comparing it, eventually I'm going to do a review of the McFarlane Toys Alien Queen. And eventually I'll show you guys the differences between the two, but McFarlane's is more of a very blue-based gray. Now this is blue-based gray as well, but you'll see. The differences between the two. McFarlane's is very, very gray in color. That's one thing I love about the Alien Queen here from NECA, is that it's got all this very, very rich blue color. Don't get me wrong, though. There's some areas to it that I'm not crazy about. I don't like all the additional gold. I wish they had kind of muted that ever so slightly so it wasn't all this very... It almost comes across like a copper bronze, maybe more like a copper color. Another big strike that I don't like about this figure, and I really only have like two, technically three strikes. One big strike is the crown. I don't like how this moves up and down. The coloring is something I'm not crazy with the gold, but those are ones I can live with. The thing that really drives me bananas with this particular figure are these. McFarlane's Queen had those completely sculpted to her back. They were not posable in the slightest. NECA, on the other hand, I appreciate it that they made these ball jointed, but it also makes it detrimental to the figure because every time you rotate the crown, it pops these off. In fact, I popped off one just in the process of. Every time you move this crown, it seems to want to pop these guys off like relentlessly. It's also got a very small peg on these, that these are also independently ball jointed. There's ball joints at the tips that connect to the spine, and then there's a secondary ball joint that attaches to the spike. Between those two, and then trying to attach those back into the back, like that, every time you move this, it pops those off without fail. I'm actually surprised I haven't popped it off more times in this review. Let's have a look at some of the other features that are on the Alien Queen here. Move the head down. There we go. The head does open. The mouth does open and close. We've established that. There's also a pivot point there, which is cool. They also give you extra mouths. There's one much longer extension on a secondary mouth. And then they also give you a shorter one as well. To attach those, simply just open up the mouth. And let me tip the figure back so you can see. there is a square, let me see if I can show you here. There's a square peg port right there that you're going to take the mouth and attach it into that. It's not the easiest. It is not the easiest, and you also have to put it a certain way. Let me show you what I'm talking about. See how it looks like the letter L? Okay, that's a bad example. If I flip it this way, see how it looks like the letter L? So there's only one way to peg this into place, and you want to make sure that you're lining it properly. You have to put a lot of pressure on that, almost too much pressure for my liking, to get that jaw into place. The end result gives you something that looks like that, which looks really cool, don't get me wrong. It just is really hard to get that pegged into place because I feel like the whole time I'm putting pressure against the head, and the last thing I want to do is break the jaw off. That's how it looks like, and we'll just take that completely off. When it comes to the posability of the Queen, it is stacked. It's one thing that it trumps over the McFarlane release of the Queen. So, in the way of posability, the head does rotate. Let me see if oh, there we go. There's another one that's fallen off. The head does rotate. There's a ball joint right there, if you can hopefully see it. The ball joint right there. And then there's a ball joint on the head itself. So you got one ball joint there, one ball joint here. This also, again, slides forward and back. It just gets too loose for my liking. The jaw, as we've already looked at, is all on its hinge. There's a ball joint right at the base that attaches itself to the torso area here. Let's kind of keep running down the torso and then we'll kind of look at the limbs. There's a secondary ball joint here, right at this section here. And then there's a swivel at the tail and a hinge, a wire frame there. As for your individual limbs, let's count these two. There's double ball joints on both, well, each one of these has a double ball joint, so they rotate, popping off all the time. This has a hinge joint. It also hinges forward and full rotation. It rotates at the bicep area and hinges at the elbow. It rotates on the hand itself, and there's a hinge there too. Then you've got ball joints on the two smaller arms inside here. They rotate all the way around. And they also rotate here, and they also rotate on the elbow. It doesn't look like they hinge as much as they rotate there as well. Then when you get to the legs forward and back motion, they hinge out ever so slightly. A single hinge first in the first knee, and then I guess the back kneecap, there's a secondary hinge there, which also rotates that lower leg. And also there's a hinge in the foot and a hinge in the toe. Admittingly, the Queen here from NECA Toys isn't perfect. It does have a little few hiccups here and there, one of which being the adjustable little spikes. This being extremely loose becomes a problem after a little bit of time. At least mine, I find, is a little bit loose. But I think after those two little nitpicks, it's a beautiful looking figure. One of NECA's finest, and I really like when they start getting into larger scale stuff. You know, the spider gremlin, you know, the bat gremlin was also a good example. Ed 209, the alien queen here. When they start getting big, NECA still produces a high quality piece. Super detailed. Also love which I don't think I mentioned either, I love the little wetness also that they've added to the piece. But NECA delivers always strong. They deliver strong when they deliver a 6-inch version of their characters, but they also deliver strong when they do large figures as well. The Queen here is no exception. If you're a fan of the Aliens movie, I definitely would say pick this one up, though. Unfortunately, the Queen, being that she's a little bit of not older figure, but I mean she's old enough that you can only really find her now in aftermarket, and the prices of her have unfortunately increased. Still, though, between the two, I think I still have a soft spot, a love for the original McFarlane toys, but by far the NECA is a superior release. Still has hiccups, yes, I admit that. It's not a perfect figure, I admit that, but it's still a great looking figure, and it's one of my favorite pieces that I have on my display. Today's throwback spot was re-looking Once again, we were looking at the Aliens. This was the Queen Deluxe figure. And I've currently got her on a display stand because I know I know the moment I move it, she's going to fall over. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more throwbacks. He has more throwbacks heading your way. As always, thanks for watching, as you always do. I'll see you next time.